So, with that being said, welcome everyone to my presentation here. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to be here on this beautiful Friday afternoon. So, if you're here, that probably means you're interested in doing cloud pen testing, right? So, the title of the talk is Keep Your Head in the Cloud Skid, subtitled into a cloud pen testing talk, right? And so by the end of this talk, you're going to understand and realize that cloud pen testing is not pen testing in the way of how we think about it, right? It's not this hack all the things, go through your five-step ethical hacking, pen testing methodology, whatever you want to call it. It's a lot different, okay? And that's not necessarily bad because actually, who can think of a reason why it's not bad? Like for you as an individual, as someone who's working in the security field, and if a lot of folks don't understand about things about this technology and don't understand the gap to be filled, why is that good for you? We all have jobs to make money, right? It's job security. There's the saying that cybersecurity is job security. So cloud's not going anywhere and everybody's going to it. So if you learn about it and you learn in this niche area about how to do this certain thing that a lot of folks don't understand, you're going to make yourself very marketable and you're going to go buy that house in that beautiful place in that beautiful area that you want to do, right? So, all right. So the forecasts. Get it? I'm going to talk about myself here for a minute because I have to, because otherwise I'm just a random guy sitting here talking up on a podium. Okay. Then we're going to go into a general cloud overview. Okay, so partly cloudy skies. And we're going to kind of understand what the cloud is. And it's not a boring, this is the shared security model. I hope you know what that is. If you don't, please Google it right now. I'm going to go over more on the statistics of what the cloud is doing, how much money it's making, and where it's going, and why that's important to you. Then we're going to go into, probably my neck of the woods. I'm actually here from Seattle. I flew in. We're going to go into an area where the skies aren't going to be so clear. It's going to be a lot more dark. Okay? We're going to talk about a lot of the issues and the trends that are being created that is being filled by these gaps for efficient cloud pen testing. Okay? Then we're going to talk about how we, the security professionals, right? The cool folks, how we actually go and assess and we make these cloud environments better, right? If you want to come in here and think about hacking all the cloud things, please get that out of your mind. It's an ego trip. Please leave it at the door. If you need to walk out and walk back in, please do so. This is more about helping people and making them better and making your job harder, okay? And then, I don't know why it says F5 there at the end. Probably should have said F12. No? Okay. Clear skies, right? How do you train yourself? How do you keep your skill set up, right? And how do you train others? Because the big thing about being a cloud pen tester, if you want to focus in this area, is that you need to focus on giving back, okay? Because it's a field that everybody has to learn a lot very quickly and has to continuously learn, right? Because all these cloud providers they're looking at it as a money pit, and they are continuously building up new services that folks that don't really want to learn something new every day kind of have to now. So they'll pay us to do it for them and just tell them, okay? So who am I? I'm that guy. I'm actually, if you look, this picture, aside from my dog, I'm wearing the same thing. Fun fact. I did wash it, I think. So my name is John Helmus. I also go by the handle Moosey or Moose. I'm an offensive security professional. I've been doing pen testing, OffSec, security consulting, things like that for about the past 5 years. Before that, I was in the engineering field and IT field, and then before that, I was in the Navy. So I've got an accumulation of about 10 years of experience all across those fields. I'm an author. I've authored that book there on the left that says AWS Penetration Testing. It is a book that is geared towards folks that don't know anything about pen testing and don't know anything about AWS. So if you want to learn a little bit about both of those, buy that book, please. The other book I've helped co-author is the Cybersecurity Master Plan. That's a book that I mentioned that no matter where you're in your career, if you're looking to make a vertical move, that's a book for you. It's wrote between me and 3 other people, and it's got about 40 to 50 years of collective experience. So, highly recommend you buy it. I'm also a professor. I teach exploit development, pen testing, red teaming, and just general cybersecurity across a few different universities in different areas, such as Minnesota, California, Washington, and also the University of Arizona, where I have actually built out, and it's coming out this spring, summer. They have developed a cloud pen testing cyber operations program. So if you want to keep hanging out with me and listen to me talk a lot more and teach you how to cloud hack, go to the University of Arizona. I'm also a dad. I have 2 little ones at my house up in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm also a farmer. That picture down there at the bottom left is my alpacas and my pig. I rescue alpacas and rehabilitate them and have all these aspirations to release them back into the wild, wherever that is, but they don't ever go back in the wild, they just stay at my house. So that is what I do. So let's go ahead and go into some partly cloudy skies, okay? The cloud is money, kind of talked about that, right? But it's just me blabbing if I don't give you some data, right? So the cloud market, look at that, look at how it kind of goes up, right? And you can kind of you can connect the dots, right? You can say 2002, it's gonna keep going up and keep going up, right? So right now, we're looking at billions and billions of dollars, forecasted to grow a lot, $20 billion by 2027. Who wants a piece of that, honestly? If all y'all don't raise your hand, then what are y'all doing? All right? We are too stressed and too overworked for not making some money, okay? So it's got a lot of money there, okay? There is a lot of money to be had in this industry. So why not learn about it? Because guess what? Everyone's going to it, okay? As you can see, there's a huge market share across the board with different companies. Look at AWS up there at the top, holding about 33%. This is a little bit of an older figure, as you can see. However, the thing is, it's still pretty relevant to right now. You know, maybe take a couple numbers here or there and push them away, but this figure actually still stays the same. Okay, so you even have your choice of what niche area you want to get into. Okay, because that number, that previous number, this guy, just applies to all of these. So pick your bargain, right? AWS is a good one. However, us AWS pen testers, that's what I focus on, is that in GCP. You know, we're kind of becoming a dime a dozen, but we are still needed. So 70% of the world's businesses now operate in the cloud. That's a lot, right? So that big 20-ish figure in the billions is going to go to 7 out of every 10 businesses that you probably work with, okay? Imagine like major retailers such as like Walmart, Target, things like that. They're all in the cloud, okay? And even if you work in tech, like for some of you, if you're pen testers, security consultants, a lot of the services and applications that you are supporting, that you are assessing, ask them what their underlying infrastructure is. 7 out of 10 times, because of statistics, is going to be cloud. So why not be able to be in a situation where if you're working with clients and saying, you know, we're going to do this and this and this, but what's your infrastructure? We see that it's, and then you notice that it's like AWS, Azure, GCP, it's in the cloud. Why not extend yourself and say, hey, I have experience testing this stuff, or I know how to help bring some benefits to your cloud environment, right? I've done that numerous times with multiple different clients. And it's helped, one, make them better, make them understand what they're doing better, but also helped me retain them as a client, right? Because now they say, okay, there's John, the cloud guy. He knows what he's doing. Let's keep him on board, right? So say that to yourself, right? Like, imagine you being able to be in that situation where you could help out someone and being able to be that person that's helping them be better than they were before, okay? That's the real big mantra, too, to think about while we're going through all this information, is it's about making things better than they were before. So, however, anytime we see something new, we try to do things with it that we don't like, what happens? Say again? Somebody messes with it, and when we don't understand it, what happens? Yeah, it exposes, it gets exposed, it breaks, something happens, or somebody breaks it. Dangers with the cloud technology is that it's often easy to put out into the public eye. So if you're putting things out on the open internet, You didn't understand what you were doing, and you just thought it was cool to spin up a server really quick, and you didn't secure it properly because it has totally different security controls, you're going to have a bad time. So now that's where we go into our black sky portion, right? So this is the part that's scary. So these numbers do not lie. They are very recent, like past quarter, 2 quarters. Okay, so studies show that majority of companies are concerned about public cloud security. Public cloud security is all the stuff that we see out in the open, right? Around 90% are worried. Imagine being someone who owns, does anybody in here own a small business? No? So if you own a small, medium, large size business, imagine seeing your competitors bring on a new technology stack such as the cloud, and you're looking at that and you're seeing them do it and you're seeing them being able to make extra money off of it or making themselves more efficient, and you say, well, we want to do it, but we don't have anybody that knows how to do it. That's going to be pretty worrisome, right? So folks are very worried about bringing it on, but they have to bring it on to stay competitive, right? Because it's making companies more efficient. So because they do that, 70% of those companies experience a breach within a year. So that means that probably one company that you shop with has experienced a cloud breach, if not more, right? So think of a company that you like. A lot of you got phones, computers in front of you while I'm up here yakking. Google 2 to 3 companies that you like, that you go to often, and look up cloud breach. Look up data leak. And I guarantee you that data leak is going to be caused by a misconfiguration in the cloud. 80% experience a breach within a year and a half. Pardon my French, but holy shit. That means that almost everybody gets hacked. Think about that. You're bringing on technology and you know you're probably going to screw up and get hacked. Imagine that. But you have to do it to stay competitive. Okay? Think about that if you owned a business. Okay? We got a lot of issues that make those numbers, right? So obviously data breaches, insufficient identity, credential, and access management, also known as IAM, right? That's essentially like our AD of the cloud environments. Insecure interfaces and APIs to access these things publicly. Just general system vulnerabilities, because guess what? If you put a vulnerable application on top of a server that you then put out into the public, guess what happens? That server is now vulnerable because it inherits the vulnerabilities on that service, on that application. Account hijacking, those are big deals, or that's a big deal, right? A lot of the big AWS hacks, such as like the one with Capital One, stemmed from an account hijack. Malicious insiders. This is something that doesn't always necessarily turn into malicious insiders, and I'll talk about that here in a minute, but we all know what a malicious insider is, right? That's the pissed off employee. That's the someone who's working under the wire, right? Advanced persistent threats, that's the people that don't want us to be in business or be making money or doing anything. Data loss, very obvious. Insufficient due diligence, not doing the things that you know you should be doing because we might be doing too many things at one time. Abuse and nefarious use of cloud services. I don't imagine how people would do that because you know, spinning up servers in a matter of seconds? No, that doesn't do that. Denial of service, right? I think we all know what that is. And then shared technology vulnerabilities, as I just talked about, right? When you incorporate a vulnerable application into a cloud service, guess what? That service now becomes vulnerable. Okay, it's back to the fundamentals there. 80 to 90%. And this is a real fact from a doctoral study that I have been doing. 80 to 90% of security issues stem, I'm a doctoral student, but I can't even spell, stem through misaction and misuse. Who knows what that is? Or who can think of what that is? And who maybe incorporates it? So, misaction and misuse is us. All of us, the security professionals, doing something that we didn't mean to do that causes issues in our cloud environments. Not setting up controls properly, not setting up policies correctly, not knowing what the hell we're doing, but because Our boss said we have to do it, and we got to get it up and done and finished and cleaned up by the end of the week. We have to do it. We got to do it, but we're also wearing a bunch of other hats, right? So we say, okay, cool, we're going to spin it up. And then something happens. And then we accidentally run a script on something that brings something down because we didn't know what it was going to do, or we accidentally execute a command because we thought it was going to, add or restrict someone, but it accidentally implemented a policy that made it so other users could potentially abuse something, right? This happens all the time. All the time. And it's incorporated by us. So we're essentially killing our own. Not even joking. I interviewed about 20 security engineers that work in the cloud, but they're not cloud security engineers, but because they have to wear many hats, they have to do it. Almost all of them have had this type of issue. So, not going to put out names there, because we don't want to kill our own, but we're making our own mistakes, and we're constantly being beaten down by them. So, more challenges with securing the cloud, right? We had talked about those issues that are stemmed from the cloud, but what are we having issues, right? I talked about the security engineers that I've been interviewing and talking to and pulling data just from other sources. So a lot of times, it's too dynamic, right? Imagine having to spin up AWS, Azure, or something like. I pride myself in understanding AWS and GCP. When somebody tells me Azure, I say, nope, to the next guy, because I don't know it. But imagine being in a situation where you can't say, nope, I don't know it, and you got to do it, right? And it's adding that complexity and that dynamicity that you have to kind of, you can't do trial by fire. You have to do it, and then it goes public, okay? Perimeter definitions, making sure that you're obviously putting perimeter security in place. A lot of times you'll have an old security group get added to like a VPC or something that then adds holes into it. Imagine it's the same thing as adding a vulnerable policy to a firewall, right? Where you have things too overly permissive, okay? Loss of control of physical security. I don't know, most of us, I don't know. Is there any hardware folks in here? No, one? Okay. Okay. So loss of physical security, don't know why, but a lot of folks' brains don't make the connection, and they find a disconnection in between, okay, we're in the cloud now, and it kind of goes back to that sense of like me being asked by clients to be on site to do a cloud assessment doesn't make sense, right? But people don't often understand it, right? We as the security folks should, but the folks doing this don't, or the folks that are paying to have it done don't. Quick to scale. That is an issue that comes from the top down. And what I mean by that is those are the folks that they see, oh, we can make a lot more money and save money going to the cloud, and we can become faster. Cool. My security guy, he's a security guy. He knows security. He knows tech. Just have him do it or have his people do it. And then we're like, well, I don't know, right? It moves so fast. You can bring up an entire buffet of servers and services within a matter of 10 minutes, if not less, okay? Lack of knowledge on cloud security, right? We wear too many hats, and I think most of us can probably relate to that being in the pandemic, right? We have probably doubled our workload just naturally. And a lot of us being able to work remote, have been able to find side revenue streams that triple our workload, and we just work at a computer all day, right? And we're killing ourselves at sometimes, right? But at the end of the day, we're wearing too many hats, right? So take a step back sometimes. And then the other big thing is usability over security. That kind of goes with the quick to scale, right? Folks know that it's easy to use the cloud. It is. It's very easy to use it. To secure it, obviously not. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be here talking. So, now that we understand the issues associated with the cloud, let's talk about the cool stuff. Cloud hacking. So, cloudy with a chance of hacks. I was trying to come up with a cool term there. I can't come up with one. So, 91 of organizations are concerned about cloud security. So we already talked about that, right? The reason why I put this on that slide is because 36% are almost extremely concerned. So everybody's basically running on all cylinders already because we're in the pandemic and things are running faster than we can keep up with anyways. And now we're adding to our stress level. It's like literally drinking 2 energy drinks and then chugging a whole pot of espresso, and then trying to make business decisions. So we're all freaking out, okay? Everybody. Now let's talk about pen testing, right? How many of y'all are pen testers? Anybody? 1, 2, okay. So who can give me an example or give us an example? I told y'all I'm interactive. Who can give us an example of what they think pen testing is? Because if most of y'all aren't pen testers, I'd love to know what you think it is. And stand up when you speak too, and say it with your chest. Otherwise the room won't hear it. Anybody? Okay, what's up? Cool. What do you do with cleaning house though? And you're going to use tools proprietary to those services, right? And to your methods and means and stuff? Are you just going to use what you know and you're going to say, okay, cool. But what if you don't know those proprietary tools? Everybody knows what Nmap is, right? It's a network scanner, okay? I can't tell you how many times I've been on a cloud pen test and people just scan things with an Nmap scan and then they call it a day. I'm not bullshitting you. In a cloud environment. We can't do that, right? Because a lot of times with an internal network pen test, you'll see just IPs, host names, whatever. And you'll say, okay, cool, I know my tool set. I think I know some of the proprietary tools for this service. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But I'm going to run what I know because it's worked in the past. Well, and while it says up here on the slide from reading it, it says AWS, right? We can't use just Nmap. We can't just use Metasploit. We can't just use any of the GitHub tools that we've been using or any of the paid third-party tools that we've been using to do this. You have to go a lot more granular and proprietary. And this is where it becomes kind of a niche field that you can excel in if you want to get into it. Because there is a lot there. There is a lot there. And even if you see all the job postings for just pen tester, if you come on board and they say, this person knows cloud, you're going to be fine. So it says 85% confirm that legacy security solutions either don't work at all. Scrap out the AWS stuff. It's just the cloud environments in general. 62% are limited, and only, look at that, 50% of work in the cloud. So if you think about that, and then you think about that those other numbers, the 90% of misaction, misuse, the 70% of breaches in a year, and then we're being paid to assess it with our old stuff, right? Does that not seem like we also might be part of the problem? Really, right? We're killing our own if we stick to our old stuff, okay? So before I start going more into the pen testing realm, and I think I'd already kind of alluded to that, this isn't a traditional pen test talk. We have to know what is the least critical and the most essential for us to know, and the most critical, right? So if you look at how it says cloud workload protection, okay? You look at the bottom, it's this, kind of like food pie or food chart kind of, but it's broken down into cloud services and cloud issues. Notice how at the bottom it's just like operation hygiene, right? That's the most critical. That's in the red. That's in the red. And a lot of times we forget to do it. Because guess what? If you scan an Ec2 server or any kind of cloud server with Nmap, and then you assess the applications and services on it, you're not going to know what the log management is on it. You don't know if it has logging to a central logging server or if it has anything like that, right? But that is fundamentally it's crucial, to the success of that cloud environment. Also, admin privileges. You can't check what admin privileges are on it. Even if you get a shell onto it, you can't figure out who has access to it because that's all ran by the cloud's identity and access management systems. You can only know what is being managed by actually assessing the cloud infrastructure. So, some strategies to think about, and we're going to kind of build off of this a little bit more, right? It's always about discovering assets within the cloud environment, also within the services themselves. And I know I harp on IAM a lot, but that's the big issue. And then assessing the security posture, right? Looking at it from like a recon standpoint. That's where you're like running scans and things like that. And then you're going to identify issues based off of your scanning, based off of your enumeration, your recon. Kind of, you know, the pen test methodology a little bit there, but you have to look at it from multiple layers, not just the layers that we've been looking at. You have to look at it from a cloud standpoint. And then you're going to remediate. I like to call it remediate and educate. Okay? So, to be a little bit more concise, this is essentially like 3 phases of cloud pen testing. Okay? So you're going to have your evaluation. That's where you're going to work with a client. You're going to look at their stuff. And a lot of times it's not even going to be a cloud pen test. I can't tell you how many pen tests I've been on that it turns into a cloud pen test. Or a cloud config. They like to call it that now too, a cloud config. So they're really trying not to make it seem like a pen test. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to work with your clients. And you're going to say, okay, cool, like what's your infrastructure? Oh, it's AWS, it's Azure, it's GCP, whatever. And you're going to ask for access to those environments. You're going to ask for 2 different levels. Can somebody think of what those levels are? User and admin, right? You want to evaluate what a user can do, and you want to evaluate what an admin can do, and you want to make sure that the user can't abuse the admin privileges. But you want to have full control over those, right? So, and while I'm saying that, notice how I'm saying you're going to be given credentials to do a cloud pen test. So guess what? Black box is gone, right? Everybody know what a black box pen test is, right? Right? Where you have no access. Save that for the red teaming, okay? Honestly, with the cloud, save it for red teaming because otherwise it's not going to bring any value to your clients whatsoever. You're going to need to have those at least 2 levels of access. You're going to need to work with your clients to make sure that you have a full scope of all the services that are being used. Just as you would get an IP list, you want to make sure that you know the services and the regions that everything's working out of, okay? You need to know what's production, you need to know what's not production, because sometimes they don't name them, right? A lot of times I can't tell you how long, like they just go off of like default IDs for instances and services. Make sure that you understand what's there, right? You don't need the whole list of the meta list, you just need the list of services that they're using. Because you have to save them time and money, and you have to be proficient in what you do. Then you're going to go into your exploration and exploitation phase. So you're going to go and you're going to run your proprietary scripts. You're not going to go do a bunch of Nmap scans, right? You're going to, with like AWS, you're going to do things like run like Cloud Suite. There's a pretty popular tool out there called Prowler that's used. You can use something like PackU. There's a lot of different tools out there that you can use, but you're going to have to use cloud pen testing proprietary tools, right? Leave your Nmap scans at home. Unless they want you to check ports and stuff, leave your Nmap scans at home, okay? And you're going to look at all the issues pulled off of the information from those, okay? And then you're going to look at the issues off of the services, and then you're going to go more granular, and you're going to potentially exploit something, right? But as I was telling someone just a minute ago, if you find out that a low-level user can actually pass an admin role to another user because of a misconfiguration, which happens a lot, you can't exploit that, and why? I said it a minute ago, but who knows why? If I was assessing your environment and you found out that user Timmy could, pass an admin role to user Sammy, and they did that in the pen test, guess what happens? User Tammy has admin rights now, and who knows how long it might take them to fix that. Hopefully they fix it that day. But also remember, go back, this is why you have to illustrate this to your clients. What was that issue that counted for 80 to 90% of the cloud issues? Misuse and misaction, right? So what happens if in the time between fixing Sammy's account, she gets on there and she does something, there's misaction and misuse for you, right? So we have to be cognizant about what we're doing when we're actually doing this. And so then once you've done all your things, right? You've assessed your services. If the client wants you to run also, more traditional pen test tools, absolutely do that. And most of the time that's what happens. But if you're just focused on cloud, if that's your job, only focus on cloud. Typically you might be on a team where another guy might be assessing the network, another guy might be assessing applications, okay? If your job is to focus on on the cloud, only focus on the cloud. That's all you got to worry about. And then you're going to make, obviously, your recommendations and your remediation. But your big thing here, too, is when you're in front of the team that you've been working with to help them with their stuff, remember how I said that it's your job to make your job harder the next time you come back? Educate them. Give them that return on their own investment, a return on their time, and show them how you did what you did. Because guess what? The cloud engineers that are working in the environment that you just assessed can use those tools, right? It's not this, we're not gatekeepers here, folks. We're not trying to do that, okay? We are sitting here trying to make the best of a situation. And hopefully I've illustrated enough from the cloud security issues that we can make the best of a situation by just being humble and being kind and taking the knowledge that we work so hard to retain ourselves and can continuously improve and sharing that with others. Because the cloud's not going anywhere and the cloud keeps on coming out with new things. So there's constantly going to be new challenges. You're never going to get bored. So make sure that you're helping the people that you're working with. Make them a cloud pen tester. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with a security group that didn't understand too much about the cloud, or at least with AWS, and worked with them, and now they're comfortable running cloud pen testing tools. Right? Now they understand what they're doing. And I still have to go pen test them, but guess what? When I'm talking to them, it's more of a collaboration session more than a education session, right? So you build that camaraderie. You're also making a good name for the offensive security community, right? And the offensive security community is often looked at as the bad guys or the geeky hackers or whatever, right? So if we can make a good name for ourselves, why not, right? So I've already kind of talked about this a little bit. Just looking at phone for time. So typical pen testing, and this is actually pulled from a cloud pen testing talk I gave last year. So if you have seen it, you've seen it. Pen testing typically looks at this list of services right here, right? It's a mix between automated and manual stuff, right? So scanning, things like that. We're going to use our tools, and then we're going to use our brains to dig into what the tools gave us. That's typically what happens, right? Functional testing. That is a key term that I like to use for the cloud, because a lot of times it's not traditional pen testing, and in fact, it's not. Unless you're red teaming, cloud pen testing is not really pen testing. You're looking at the functionality of how something works. Think about it as like being a QA engineer. And I've said that in a lot of meetings, and I've pissed off a lot of pen testers. I said in a meeting where I'm like, we're not really pen testing, we're more of doing quality assurance. Which is true. So understand that security is built into the services, right? And this is kind of a low blow, especially for y'all that work in security or work in cloud. Security is built into most cloud services. So why are they insecure? Because we put insecurity, like we put vulnerabilities into them. That's what we do, just configuring them. It's not rocket science. If anything, it's in a fancy GUI where we can just click. But we put bugs into it, right? But that's nothing to be ashamed about, right? That's why we have jobs. So add some flair, right? Look for systematic vulnerabilities. Evaluate your security groups. That's a big deal, okay? And a lot of times those security groups are attached to literally every single service within your cloud environments. So if you can pinpoint issues at the user group level, a lot of times you can honestly remediate issues with a lot of services. Because a lot of times, think about it with like S3 buckets. S3 buckets get spun up like pimples, and they pop up everywhere. So if you can add a secure policy to your buckets or to your cloud storage that might go public, why not? Analyze and evaluate security posture from a QA perspective, right? I already talked about that. 77% of cloud breaches involve credentials, right? So you must have credentials prior to testing, as I mentioned, right? If you want to do black box testing in the cloud, or the black box testing is your thing, the cloud might not be your thing. Sorry. So, just to be concise and be very fundamental, right? This isn't anything crazy, but I do this to make it relatable. You have pen testing and you have functional testing. I wish this was wireless. I would just come out there and point at things, or I had yeah. So what's there on the left? It's an Nmap scan, right? It's an Nmap scan of an Ec2 server, right? Which is a server in AWS. That's what we use to build all our stuff on, or put all our stuff on, okay? It's just like a server that you would have right here next to you. So in a traditional sense, a lot of times we would just run an Nmap scan to see the security posture of it, right? But notice on the next portion, we can't assess if it's monitoring or if somebody can just delete it, misuse and misaction. See how that keeps replaying? We can't evaluate that from an Nmap scan. We can't evaluate that from a tool that's just going to scan the server. We actually have to have those credentials to go look, right? And there's pen testing tools that we can do to automate, to pull this functional testing information. That's not the point, right? There's plenty of tools out there to do that. I had already mentioned some, like Scout Suite. Scout Suite, if you're doing AWS, is going to be your bread and butter and your whole meal. But we have to understand that there's infrastructure under it that we have to assess from the GUI, or from, in this case, from the console, okay? Or you can do it from the CLI, but it's a lot easier if you just do it from the console. But if you were to go and say, oh, I'll pen test your cloud stuff, it's cool, and you only reported in a proof of concept what you show on what's on the left there, you missed an entirely different point. And there's some findings on that right one. So you have to look at those things, because otherwise you're not really assessing the cloud, okay? On the left, that's actually a Metasploit script, pulling it users, kind of like showing you some things. And this is actually from Gray Hat last year, as you can see, the Gray Hat user at the top. Right, so that kind of like shows you some things, and it does work. However, it also spits out a lot of information. So why not just go into the console and see what you got, right? And then you can just start pulling things from there. And it also, if you're walking an engineer through this, an engineer who doesn't know what Metasploit is, or is, you know, unfortunately, sometimes we work with engineers that aren't comfortable with terminals. It's a lot easier and relatable to them to just walk them through the console and say, hey, here's how you do this. I know in pen test findings, I very rarely submit a screenshot of a terminal. I just walk them through how to replicate it within the console. Because that's what's relatable to them, right? You want to make it relatable to the folks that you're working with, because that's how they're going to retain the information the most. Remember, we're in a loop of education for the folks that we're working with. So, things to consider when cloud pen testing. This is where we have to think about it from not just a pen testing standpoint, where we need to educate folks again, okay? So you want to tell folks how to monitor things going on in their environment, which often doesn't happen a lot. And that's why things go undetected. Not that ever happens, right? People don't live inside the wire for years, right? So superhuman activity, right? A user has logged into the cloud console or accessed it with 2 different geolocations. That sounds kind of weird. What does that sound like? Sounds like somebody's probably doing some VPN stuff, working from different weird locations that they can try to get into, because then I see it a lot. You'll see somebody from some different country try to log in, and then they get blocked, and guess what they do? They try to do it from another location. And you can monitor that stuff. It's super easy. It's super easy. So let the folks know that you're working with that they can do that. And look for stuff like that. And the only way how you can do that is you can't do that with a traditional pen testing tool. You actually have to go in the cloud environments and look at it. Usage spikes, right? Something that's out of the ordinary. That's pretty obvious, right? Data breaches, log analysis is a big thing. Make sure that you do central log analysis. Make sure that you test for central log analysis, and all that is going and looking at your logging systems and your clients' cloud environments. Malicious privilege escalation attempts, right? If you look at logs, or you see a role or a user that can actually abuse another user by, a lot of times within AWS environments is by passing a role or assuming a role. That happens a lot. Look for things like that. And just look for the roles. You don't even need to, you can really make the assumption of, if you see a role that can be passed on to somebody by a low-level user, it means they can pass on an admin role. Just make the assumption there that you got to cut that out. Malicious malware file creation and propagation paths, right? So that's typically like putting malware in the cloud, right? There's a lot of good talks that that are pre-recorded on the internet that you can watch about that, because we could talk about that for a while. Failed attempts to take terminal access of sensitive resources. That's a lot of times where, like, think about in the traditional pen testing sense, where like we don't want to piss off the IR guys, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out, how we can access something once or twice, and then we keep going. But if somebody keeps accessing it or trying to, because they feel that they might have found some old credentials in an old bucket somewhere or in a GitHub somewhere, then they're going to try to do that. Very script kiddie, but attempt to change key configuration files. So those keys are what give you access to the cloud environments. So if you see folks trying to change keys, that means they're technically trying to keep you out, right? Which is actually denial of service, right? So if you're seeing folks trying to do that, that's a bad day. Some special considerations, right? IoT, put zero trust models if you're putting IoT devices on top of your cloud services, right? Yeah, right? Because IoT security sucks. Yes. Security by design, trust nothing, verify everything, right? So we always want to go with like zero security, or zero trust security. I apologize. Multiple cloud environments, mixing the cloud. How many of you have worked with a client, work at a company that uses more than one cloud provider? Just 1, 2, 3, 4? I feel like we probably all would raise our hands, but all right. And that kind of goes back to the part of understanding special considerations with yourself. Just because you know how to work with one cloud environment doesn't mean you know how to work with another one. So if you don't know how to work with one, make sure that you tag team with someone who does. And then artificial intelligence, machine learning, right? That's some complex stuff that sometimes my brain doesn't fully comprehend. But do know, like, some services are more proprietary to using it, such as GCP. I don't know why, but that seems to be because of Google and Google AI. I guess that's my best assumption, is AI is going into GCP a lot. Work smarter, not harder. Again, this is something that you need to do when you're pen testing, or you need to relay to your clients. And a lot of this is fundamental, okay? Perform regularly scheduled assessments on your cloud environment. So if you're working as an internal team, or you have a cloud environment for your company, make sure that somebody's regularly scanning it, and not just scanning it with regular tools, that they're using cloud tools, okay? So if you have a security, and this goes a lot of times with, like, if you have a security engineer that's working on cloud environments, make sure that they understand what they're doing. So that's vulnerability assessments. Do periodic penetration tests, right? I don't think the 6-month model really works with cloud right now. I know from experience doing a pen test on someone's infrastructure in 6 months and then coming back to it 6 months. Guess what? A lot of times there's more holes than there were before, because remember, it's quick to scale, and a lot of we work in a field right now, and just in tech in general, people leave jobs pretty quickly. They're there for about a year to 2, if that. So the new person comes in and might not know what they're doing. Maybe there wasn't like there's not good documentation on processes and methods and things to do. So there's still the same issues, they come back up. So again, it kind of comes back into that you're kind of constantly stuck in the education stage, but you want to get to the part where you can just collaborate. And then red team engagements, right? Red team engagements is where you're going to be doing red teaming. It's traditional red teaming. There's no whats or buts about it. You're going to be spending months researching the target before you even make a move. And by the way, with the periodic pen test, I think it's best if you can do it maybe like every 3 months, maybe every 2, or just train your folks to run those tools that I talked about. Have your cloud security team give training regularly, right? Teaching is learning, fact. That's why I like to teach, because I get paid to learn. You must be a student to be a teacher, right? You always have to learn. You have to be in a constant state of mind to continuously up your knowledge. And remove the burden of complexity. This is a random thing that I put in there. By installing and maintaining centralized logs. Because a lot of times folks will only have logs dependent of the services. Have a place that collects everything. Because if you do that, it's just easy to manage it on one thing, right? And there's lots of logging stuff out there to do that with, right? So use the one that you're more diverse with, right? And only works if you turn logging on the services anyways. Right, and then reduce alert fatigue for the teams that you're working with when you're pen testing them, right? So make sure that they understand that, like, you can find a way to automate the, flagging for false positives and things like that. And visualize threats and logs collected across the cloud services to easily identify vulnerable cloud services and cloud servers in a dynamic auto-scaled environment. And essentially, that's a big bullet point that just says, make sure that you monitor anything that is out of the ordinary and understand how to log it and how to be alerted on it when it happens. And right, and again, while I know we're talking more about like, it's not even defense, this is more of like configuration and just general security. These are things that you're looking for when you're doing cloud pen testing, because these are things that you need to relay back to the folks that you're working with, because these are the things that I commonly find when I'm doing cloud pen testing. And then use standard security practices. That's the kind of simple part, is that you're going to understand perimeter security, separation of duties. Everybody has their job, and that least privilege, that, Timmy shouldn't have admin privileges, right? Timmy needs to not be able to do anything. Always monitor your public cloud technology because it's at a high risk, because it's out there in the world, and encrypt everything. I don't know about y'all, but I see so much stuff that's not encrypted. And if you don't believe me, that's what happens with buckets. The buckets that in the cloud storage leaks, 9 times out of 10, it happened not just because of an insecure bucket, or it was insecure, but it's because the data also wasn't encrypted. So if it's happening in the public, I bet you it's also not happening privately. So now that you understand threats, issues, security trends, bad things, and how to kind of like rethink your mindset on pen testing, if getting into the cloud and doing pen testing in the cloud is something that you want to do, let's talk about how we get into much clearer skies, okay? Educate yourself continuously, okay? Books, literally anything about the cloud. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be offensive security. It doesn't have to be it doesn't matter. Just go pick up a book about a service that you about a cloud provider that you want to learn about. There's a book by Wiley called Practical Cloud Security. I think I've used it in every cloud course I've taught. It's an amazing book, and it's very general in the sense of it doesn't talk about a specific cloud provider, but it talks about services in general. Certifications, there's a lot of AWS ones out there. There's a lot of GCP, there's some GCP ones and some Azure ones. Cloud pen testing though, right? That's a cool thing. We're starting to see certifications come out with that. So if you got a really, really nice company or a really, really deep wallet that you don't mind giving a lot to SANS, you can go to SANS and they have a cloud pen testing course right now. I've heard pretty good things about it. So if it's something that you're interested in doing, they talk about the 3 major providers, AWS, GCP, and Azure. And there's a certification for it. So you'll get some return on your investment by going and taking the certification, crushing it, getting your certificate that you can put on your wall. Pen Tester Academy has a lot of cloud pen testing labs now, which is awesome. They have really scaled out over the past, I want to say over the past 6 months to a year, and made a lot of cloud pen testing labs. They even have a certification now. They have one for, I believe it's Azure. Don't quote me on it, but I believe it's for Azure. So if that's something you're interested in, go take that. There's a random company out there in the world, but I've heard decent things by people who have taken it. It's called cyberwarfare.live. They're a company based out of India, but they have an AWS red teaming course. And I've heard pretty good things about it. So has anybody in here, I thought I heard somebody take it before? No? No. But I've heard good things. I haven't taken it, but heard good things. Hack the Box, which we all know and love because they're awesome. They just came out with corporate cloud security training, or in this case, cloud pen testing training. I actually hit them up because I was trying to see if you could do it as an individual. You can't. So if you are interested in doing it, you have to have 10 people. So if 9 of you want to come hang out with me and do it, we can just call ourselves a company and go do it because I want to do it. But that's another avenue you can do. And then a lot of times conference workshops. There's a lot of conference workshops that do cloud pen testing. I gave a couple last year. People loved them. People took a lot away from it. And it's something that usually costs, 20, 50 bucks, and you get a lot of training. And then degrees. Notice how I put yes and exclamation points. There are degree programs in cloud computing and even cloud pen testing. As I mentioned, not to put it as a selling point, but I built a cloud pen testing program at the University of Arizona that's going to be being taught remotely. So you don't have to leave your great state of Texas to go take it, or you can take it from here. But then there's also a lot of cloud computing programs out there. And the good thing is that if you already know security and pen testing from a general standpoint, cloud computing is going to help you become a cloud pen tester, and you'll be ready to go and start helping people, even if you're a junior pen tester. And I'm not joking. If you're a junior pen tester and you learn general cloud computing and cloud security, you'll be a middle of the pack cloud pen tester. So. And then thinking outside the box, right? When we're thinking about training other people, which I think that's also been like a mantra throughout this entire talk, is that we need to make sure that we're continuously educating everyone around us, okay? Certain cloud services require new skill sets for when we're teaching ourselves and others. Steep learning curve is GCP because it just happens to be the one, and that's where a lot of AI stuff is going. Steepest is AWS. And while AWS is used everywhere, it's the steepest because it's used everywhere. And what I mean by that is because it's easy for people to bring it on board, because everybody wants to bring it on board because it's the common thing that everybody's using. But then folks might not know how to deploy it, configure it, secure it. So it's your job to work with a lot of people at one time to make sure that you're testing, assessing their stuff right, and then telling them how to secure it correctly. Train cloud security engineers, right? Train cloud security engineers or security engineers to become cloud security engineers. Teach them how to become cloud pen testers. Why not? Because guess what? You're still going to come onto an assessment with them one day because their company requires you to, and they might do the work for you. So therefore, you can just sit back and hear the money be printed and watch them do what you've taught them to do. But teach them the functional pen testing methodologies, teach them just general pen testing, and have them have an offensive security mindset so that they can shift into that when they need to. Because you're not always going to be there, right? You're teaching them to fly out of the nest. Integrate security awareness, educate, evaluate, deploy. So that means make sure that you teach your people. Evaluate their understanding by assessing and pen testing their environments. And then deploy them, right? It's kind of weird, but deploy them and their stuff to make sure, to have them go out into the world and start doing what you've told them to do. And then monitor it. Monitor how they're doing things. Monitor how they're deploying things. Most of all, monitor their culture. Monitor and make sure that they understand that they're not getting burnt out. Understand that they know what they're doing. And make sure that they understand that they can't be gatekeepers. I think a lot of us become gatekeepers sometimes. I've done it. I think a lot of us have done it. Where we want to hold on to our knowledge because we worked so hard to understand something and we don't want to share it with someone else. You can't do that, right? So make sure that they're not doing that and that they're sharing it with the people that are going to replace them. And with that, that's all I got. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's my name, John Helmus. You can find me on Twitter at Moosey_Moose. I'm also on Discord at Moosey. Or you can find me in the beautiful, amazing Pacific Northwest, which is what's over there on the right. And with that, I am here for your questions. Do I host the slides? I can, yeah. I usually, this is all on a Google Drive, so I can just make it shareable for viewing. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll post them later this weekend. Any other questions? Yes? So that's a good question because I have done that and failed and succeeded. So, and let me make sure I'm on board with your question. that we're on the same train here. So you asked, how do we get our students so that they can get this knowledge in a practical sense, right? So this is an amazing question that professors deal with a lot, right? How do we get our students practical experience, because they get out of school with a degree and then they still don't have that experience that employers want. So the best way to do that is to use your network. Use your network of people, rather it's working with small, medium, or large businesses. Typically it's small. And I've done this in Seattle, and I've helped create a couple different cloud pen testers from it. Is just to find small businesses, small pen test shops that you can go work with and say, hey, I have some students that are really hungry. You don't have to do an internship. You don't have to do anything. Just like, whatever piece of paper that you need to make sure that you're not held like legally responsible or anything. What can they do just to shadow someone, right? Let them go shadow another tester. And it's kind of hard right now because everybody's remote and people don't want some student coming into their house. But you could do it remotely, right? And the big thing is that the student's going to have to, usually sign a non-disclosure agreement, right, an NDA. But outside of that, the student then can go and observe and look. And a lot of times they're not going to be able to say, they're not going to go hands-on keyboard, but they can see it from a practical standpoint and then apply it in a sandbox. And I've done that with quite a few students to where I tell them, hey, you can go observe someone, go practice it, and then you can kind of connect the dots. And we kind of have to play the game here a little bit, but you can put that on your resume and saying that you were a student tester for this company, right? And I've had a couple students do that with some companies up in Seattle, such as one called Anvil, and the other one was Rhino. So, good question. And if any of you are in school, make sure you tell your professors that you want to do that. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thanks everyone for sitting here, listening to me yap, and enjoy the rest of the conference. And I guess I'll be seeing y'all around. You can, if you see me out in the hallways and you got a question that you want to ask me, feel free to ask. So, thank you.